You ever have that one moment where everything seems fine and then a tiny detail clicks out of place and suddenly you know your life is about to reroute? Mine started with a missing key. I, 31M, grew up in a large but close-knit family. 3 older brothers, 2 younger sisters, and a mom who managed to keep us fed and functioning with an almost mythical level of patience. Our dad died when I was 16, so the older ones, especially my oldest brother, James, stepped up and filled in that role in different ways. After college, I moved back home to save money and stayed longer than I meant to, partially out of financial necessity, partially because our backyard garden had become my little sanctuary. My dad built that garden shed before I was born. It was half falling apart, smelled like cedar and wet soil, and for some reason, he had always kept it locked. After he died, the key went missing. For years, no one had touched it. I even asked my mom once, and she said, "That was your father's space." I didn't go in there either. Then one day, I found the key. It was buried at the bottom of a box of old Christmas decorations in the attic. A small, unmarked silver key, but unmistakably for that door. Out of pure curiosity, I went down to the shed and unlocked it. It didn't squeak open or reveal some family treasure. Just the usual musty interior, some old tools, and a stack of boxes. Boxes labeled with years, and a folder on top marked insurance and accounts. I wish I could say I hesitated, but I didn't. I opened it. Within 2 minutes, my entire understanding of our family finances and my brother James started to unravel. The folder was a mess of old insurance policies, mortgage documents, and spreadsheets, but right there in the middle were a few printed emails that made my stomach drop. They were between James and a financial planner, and they weren't about his personal finances. They were about our dad's life insurance policy, the one we were all told had been modest, barely enough to cover funeral expenses and some lingering medical bills. Turns out it was not modest. It was substantial, enough to set up a trust, enough that my mom should never have had to go back to part-time work after dad passed. And yet, she did. We all did. Scrape by. Cut corners. My hands were shaking as I flipped through the pages. There it was. James had been made the sole executor of the life insurance trust. And for the last 15 years, he had quietly redirected the funds into a series of private accounts. He wasn't spending it on yachts or anything obvious. No, James was smarter than that. He invested it, subtly, consistently, grew it, while mom stressed about grocery bills, while my sister Sarah deferred college, while I moved back home, thinking we were just getting by. I felt sick, then I felt angry, then I just sat there, stunned. The next day, I asked mom if she ever saw the actual life insurance policy. She blinked and said, "James handled all that." Why? Why? Because apparently our family's responsible eldest son had been gatekeeping our financial security like a dragon hoarding gold. I didn't confront him right away. I needed more information. So I did what any emotionally stunned millennial would do. I made a spreadsheet. I spent 3 weeks digging. Every spare moment after work, I was at that shed or on my laptop. I reconstructed financial trails, cross-referenced bank account numbers, and even found an old flash drive hidden in a filing cabinet. James wasn't technically stealing. That's the part that made it worse in some ways. Everything was technically above board. No forged signatures, no offshore accounts, just quiet, deliberate decisions made under the umbrella of his legal authority. But morally, he had failed us. I printed out what I found and took it to Sarah first. She was always the most level-headed. When she saw the documents, she just stared for a while and whispered he knew what we were going through. He let us think we were broke. We looped in our other siblings one by one. Some reacted with fury, others with stunned silence. Our brother Matthew punched a cabinet. Aaron cried. Andrew didn't say much, but he looked like he'd aged 10 years in an hour. The final confrontation wasn't planned. We ended up at Mom's house for Sunday dinner. Everyone except James, who had a late meeting. When he walked through the door, saw us all there, and noticed the folders on the table. He knew. To his credit, he didn't deny it. He sat down, sighed, and said, "I did what I thought was safest. I wanted to protect the money. I thought if we had access to it too early, it'd be gone." Matthew snapped, "You mean you didn't trust us?" James said, "I didn't trust life not to screw us again. That's when I realized he had been scared. After Dad died, James took it all on his shoulders and decided control was the only way to keep us safe. It wasn't malicious, but it was wrong. We spent hours arguing, some yelling, some crying. But eventually, we came to a decision. James would transfer the accounts to a shared family trust, one that included all of us, with a proper financial planner overseeing things. He agreed. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. Rebuilding trust doesn't come with a playbook. It's not a one-time conversation. It's 1,000 small decisions made differently. James made an effort. He didn't disappear or sulk or try to spin the narrative. He showed up to family dinners, to our new monthly finance meetings that Sarah suggested and somehow made less terrible by hosting them with charcuterie and wine. He was honest, sometimes painfully so. He explained how after Dad's death, he'd been barely 22, terrified, and the bank had basically told him, "Don't let this disappear." So he hadn't. He'd clung to it like a lifeline. Over time, we stopped thinking of James as the villain and started seeing him as what he really was, a scared kid who grew into a control-hungry adult because he never got the space to grieve properly. Mom forgave him first, quietly, without a grand speech. She just invited him over for tea and made his favorite almond cake. That was her way. The rest of us took longer. But healing, like trust, happens in layers. Sarah helped James find a new financial advisor who could put safeguards in place. Matthew actually apologized for the cabinet punch and then replaced it. Aaron started talking to James again, cautiously. And Andrew gave him a hug, and that was the moment I think James forgave himself. As for me, I kept going back to the shed. I cleaned it out, repaired a few things, turned it into a small writing studio where I'm sitting now, typing this. Some wounds don't heal in a straight line, but this feels like closure. We may not be the same family we were before, but maybe we're a better one now.